and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review. With us today, taking a look at one of the very last games that saw release in the PAL and North American regions. I am of course talking about the 3D action game Burning Rangers, which first saw release in February of 1998 in Japan, before being followed by a May release in North America, and then finally a June release over here in the PAL region. So Burning Rangers is set in a future society where the only threat left to human life is indeed fire. As a member of the Burning Rangers team, you get dispatched to emergency incidents in different locations where you have to fight the fires and rescue the people in danger. Sometimes you'll come across enemies as well, and there is indeed of course a boss at the end of every stage. Like always, we'll be talking about what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it plays like, its content and lifespan, and ultimately whether it's got the quality to make our PAL or worldwide Saturn top 10s. So once you hit the main menu, you'll see you've got a choice of story mode, options and mail. If you head into options, you've got a few things you can tweak. Your control pad layout, you've got a few sound options, and more importantly, you can see the rescue list as well. If you head into the mail option on the main menu, it will let you read any messages that the rescued civilians have left for you. So once you've selected story mode, you've got a choice of two characters, Sho and Tillis, and these are the main protagonists in the game. Once you've made your selection, you will be introduced to the game via a tutorial mission, which will teach you all of the basic controls for the game.
The leader of the Burning Rangers, and your navigator for this exercise.
Chris always monitors our situation and provides us with updates. Make sure you listen to her carefully, because it may save your life.
So like always, we're going to start with visuals first, and with Burning Rangers being a 1998 release, indeed one of the very last games that came out on the system in the PAL and North American regions, expectations at the time would have been quite high that this would indeed be one of the best looking 3D games that the Saturn had ever produced. You have to take into account the PlayStation had started putting out some of its better looking games at this point in time. We'd already seen Gran Turismo towards the end of 1997, and it was a very high quality, so you would be expecting the Saturn to be pumping out some of its best 3D visuals at this point in time as well. But I am going to be honest, Burning Rangers is for me what I would call the ultimate in terms of a mixed bag when it comes to visuals.
I'm here to save you. Coordinates set.
Coordinates confirmed. Transport. Transport complete.
Now, what do I mean when I talk about a mixed bag? Well, I'm going to start with the positive things first, because I think there are actually quite a few. I think the visual style of the game is very nice. It's got this futuristic, slightly anime feel to it, and I think it fits the style of the game really well. To go with this, we've got really decent quality video sequences that happen throughout the game as well, that tie the story together quite nicely. Now, people will know the Saturn didn't always have good quality video in games. For every game that had decent quality, there might be 2 or 3 that it was very poor. So it's very good that Burning Rangers is good in this area. As well as this, we've got some nice visual effects. Of course, the fire is truly transparent, which is something it absolutely had to be for this game. If it went for mesh effect with the fire, I think the game would have been an absolute hideous mess, in all fairness. There's some really nice lighting effects throughout the levels as well, and I think the game has got quite a good use of colour. Something that we saw in Saturn 3D games is that they tended to be quite dark, but I don't really think that's much of an issue here in Burning Rangers. I think it's quite visually aesthetic throughout the game. In terms of the visual performance, there's no real slowdown that's noticeable, which I think is good. Menu presentation is nice as well, and there isn't really too many loading times as well. So I do feel there are quite a few positive points for Burning Rangers in terms of visuals. In regards to the HUD display, it's actually quite clear and easy to understand once you know what all of it means. In the top left hand corner, you've got the time taken currently so far in the mission. Just beneath that, you've got the number of crystals collected so far. Towards the bottom left hand corner of the screen, it will display whether you've collected an ID card. And just beneath that is the charge gauge for if you're charging up your pulse laser. The bottom right hand corner of the display will show you your current location, and the two other things are the danger limit bar at the top of the screen in the middle and the danger limit graph in the top right hand corner. Now the danger limit bar shows you how close the environment is to a 20% danger limit. The green area will shrink as the 20% limit approaches, and in the top right hand corner you've got the danger limit graph. At each 20% increment, the heat and the pressure of the surrounding area reaches the limit that will trigger off multiple explosions. For me, this is the only confusing part, and to be fair, it doesn't really matter in all fairness as you play through the game. Now, for all the good that the game does, it also does a fair bit bad, because without a doubt, Burning Rangers is one of the glitchiest 3D games I think I've seen on the system. You'll have pop in and pop out, areas of the floor just disappearing then reappearing in front of you. It's actually very, very off-putting. The game has also got pretty poor collision detection as well, and even though we've got true transparencies for the fire effects, the game is cluttered with mesh effect transparencies for everything else, whether you're talking about your character's shadows, smoke effects, or when you're teleporting civilians that you're rescuing, they are all mesh effect. In fact, the civilians don't even have any shadows at all themselves. So for everything that Burning Rangers does good in terms of visuals, I feel quite a lot of it is undone by all of the negative aspects as well.
Your shield is out.
So moving on to what I consider is Burning Ranger's strongest point, and that is the sound and the music within the game, because I feel it performs very strongly in all areas. The sound effects within the game are incredibly good, whether we're talking about the fire, your pulse weapon, all of the sound effects are very, very strong. In terms of the voice acting, that's another highlight as well, because it's done really, really well. A lot of games back at this point in time didn't have particularly good voice acting in them, and it was a massive letdown, but I feel Burning Rangers performs really strongly. The voices are incredibly clear, something that wasn't always the case back then as well, so I feel it's a real strong point. And we've got really good music within the game as well. Some of the tunes are very good to listen to, with the title track in particular being a favourite of mine. So what I'll do is what I always do, give you some examples of the music within the game. So moving on to the gameplay next, and in regards to the structure of the game, it's quite straightforward. You'll enter each level with the objective of rescuing as many trapped individuals as you can as you navigate through the areas, extinguishing the flames, taking down the enemies, unlocking the doors, and eventually facing off against the end of level boss. Some of the areas that you enter may have zero gravity, whereas others may well be underwater, so there's actually a little bit of variety in terms of the level structure. As well as this, each level does have a varying number of people to rescue. Speaking of rescuing the individuals, it's not simply a case of going up to someone and then they're teleported to safety. You need at least 5 crystals to rescue somebody, and crystals also have another use as well because they protect you from dying. As long as you have at least 1 crystal, then you can get hit by an enemy or hit by fire and you won't die straight away. Of course, if you don't have any crystals left and then you're hit, you will lose a life and have to restart from the start of the last area. It's actually quite a unique game in regards to its setup, I think, at least anyway, and I don't really think there was anything quite like it when it was released back in 1998. Now, as for how well the game controls, it's actually very easy to pick up and play. There isn't any real difficulty in getting straight into the action, and there isn't really a whole lot to learn in all fairness in terms of the basic controls. You move your character with the D-pad or the analog stick, you can jump, you can double jump, you can fire your pulse to extinguish the flames, and you can hold down the button to release a more powerful charge which will take down the stronger flames and can also be used to take down the enemies within the game as well. You can rotate the camera with the R and L triggers, and you can also freely look around the environments as well. You can also contact Chris Parton, the leader of the Burning Rangers, for navigation tips via your radio too. The game actually plays quite well when it comes to moving your character around and exploring, along with firing your pulse weapon, but I do feel there are actually a few niggles within the game as well. The camera's pretty inconsistent and it's not particularly well refined, which can mean it's somewhat problematic when you're making jumps at various points in the game. In regards to the jump in itself, you may well find yourself thrusting forward when you don't want to, which can again be a little bit frustrating as well. And it doesn't stop there, because the game has an auto jump mechanic that activates when you try and walk off a ledge, meaning your character will automatically jump forward. And of course, this can be somewhat irritating if you simply want to drop down to a ledge below, and it can cause you to make jumps you don't necessarily want to make. The only other flaw in the gameplay, certainly at least in my opinion anyway, is the way the game reacts to you evading impending explosions. Now, when you hear a whistle noise, it will mean an explosion is about to take place, and what the game wants you to do is press backwards on the analog stick or the D-pad to do a backflip out of the way and evade it. You can then extinguish the flames and carry on. Now, if you simply ignore this and choose to run forward or jump through the flames, or you simply mistime your button press, you will be punished, because the game will then trigger a series of explosions one after another in a massive attempt to try and catch you and burn you and make you lose all of your crystals. It's actually very frustrating, and I feel it's a real niggle in terms of the gameplay, because the game is trying to force you to play it in a particular way, and I don't like games that do this. So this for me is another drawback in regards to the gameplay. Burning Rangers is in general pretty okay to play, and it's by no means a poor playing game, but it simply lacks the refinement of a game like Tomb Raider. Personally, I feel the game probably needed a bit more of a thorough playtest really before it was released, with a few more tweaks here and there, but because it was a 1998 Saturn game, it simply wasn't going to get that, which means what we got is a game that can be quite entertaining and fun in places, but it can also be a little bit frustrating and irritating as well.
More water is coming in. Joe, hurry up.
You can do it!
So moving on to content and lifespan next, and there are 4 missions for you to play through on Burning Rangers as either Show or Tillis, and it doesn't matter which character you use, because once you complete a level with one, it will open up the next level for both characters. Now, as well as this, you can play as the other members of the Burning Rangers team, because once you complete the game, you'll get access to the password menu, which lets you input a variety of codes, which means you'll be able to use the other characters to play through the levels. Now, there is a downside here, because the game isn't designed to have these characters as the main protagonists. You'll have music playing constantly, and there will be no speech, so it doesn't actually really feel like you're playing through the game properly. In fact, it feels like something that was tacked on perhaps towards the end of the gameplay's development, just to give it a little bit more content.
You're lost,
In terms of the game's lifespan, this is one of the areas where I've seen many people criticize the game because it simply doesn't take very long to play through. A perfectly competent gamer can probably play through Burning Ranges in around about 2 hours, and that's it. It by no means has that lifespan of a game like Tomb Raider or Croc, which are much more thorough, expansive 3D action platformer style games within the system's library. And there isn't really a whole lot to come back to here either. The only challenge really is trying to rescue every single one of the trapped civilians within the game, and once you've done that, there isn't really a lot to see. Now when you do play the game again, the levels are actually mixed up because all of the rooms aren't necessarily in the same places as they are when you played it before. It swaps it around, which is quite clever because it means there's a continual challenge when you play the game again. It's not going to be the same every single time, but I do feel it is a massive weak area for the game. Probably the game's weakest aspect in all fairness, because it just simply doesn't take long to play and there isn't a whole lot to come back to play through again. So like always, that leaves me with my two final questions. Is Burning Ranges still worth playing nowadays? And does it have the quality to make our PAL or worldwide Saturn top 10s? Now in terms of whether it's still worth playing, it actually is, because it's a very unique game in terms of the actual setup and the design, even nowadays I feel. So yes, you probably will get a little bit of enjoyment from it, perhaps not as much as some people would make out. I do think there are quite a few niggles and glitches within the game which do hinder the enjoyment overall, but it is a very unique game, especially within the Saturn's library. Now, of course, moving on to whether Burning Ranges has the quality to make our PAL or worldwide Saturn top 10s. Now, there's no denying Burning Ranges is a relatively enjoyable game to play. It's got some nice visual effects, it's easy to pick up and play, and because it's quite short, there's no excuse for you not to complete it. It's also tied together quite well with the storyline sequences in between each mission, but there are some glaring faults with this game that you simply can't overlook. The graphical glitches are all over the place. It feels like an unfinished, unpolished game, and it is pretty rough in areas, and that ties over to the gameplay too, because I just don't feel it is as tightly playing as it should be. I don't think it plays as well as Tomb Raider, in all fairness. It just doesn't feel as refined as it should be, and it's for these reasons Burning Ranges doesn't make either our PAL or worldwide Saturn top 10s. Now, by no way is it a bad game. It's still quite good, like I've said, and I feel the scores at the time were pretty accurate. It got around about an 8 out of 10 on average in the large majority of magazines back when it came out, and I feel these are pretty fair. In fact, they're probably quite lenient because some of them overlooked a lot of the graphical glitches that the game had on display. Certainly there were a lot more in Burning Ranges than a lot of the other 3D games that we saw on the PlayStation at the time. So Burning Ranges doesn't quite make either our PAL or worldwide Saturn top 10s. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone, and I always say I'm interested in hearing everybody else's thoughts on all of the games that I review. I know a lot of people out there have said it's one of the best games on the console. I don't quite think it is personally, but like always, let me know your thoughts on Burning Ranges down below, and I'll be back in the near future with another video. Goodbye for now.
Huh?